You ever have one of those days where you wake up and something just feels off, like your body knows before your brain catches up? That's how it started for me. Nothing dramatic, no warning signs. Just me dragging myself out of bed in Clearwater, thinking maybe I'd caught a bug or slept wrong. But it kept getting worse. The pain in my head wasn't like any headache I'd ever had. It felt deeper, like it wasn't just on my head but inside it, like something had crawled in during the night and decided to settle there. I couldn't eat, couldn't even sip water without gagging. My thoughts got muddy fast, like I was walking through thick fog and couldn't remember what I came into the room for, or what time it was. At first, I blamed dehydration, or maybe a flu coming on, but then came the voices. I was lying there, sweating through my sheets, when I heard it, a kid's voice, soft, high-pitched. It said, "Mama?" like it was calling from the hallway. I froze. We don't have kids. We don't even see kids in this neighborhood. It was the middle of a weekday, Ethan was at work, and the house was supposed to be empty. I tried calling out, but my voice cracked. Nothing came back. Maybe if I'd felt stronger, I would have checked, but standing up made the room spin, so I just laid there, heart pounding in my ears, trying to tell myself I imagined it, that I was tired, or maybe dreaming, but I wasn't asleep. I know I wasn't asleep, and that's what scared me the most, not just what I heard, but the realization that something was happening inside me, and I had no idea what. I barely remember getting in the car. I think Ethan half carried me down the steps. My body felt like wet cement, and every time the sunlight hit my face, it was like being punched right between the eyes. I was only half conscious, but even then I knew something was really wrong. Not just sick wrong, emergency room wrong. The ride to St. Bridget's was short, but it felt like hours. Every bump in the road sent pain ricocheting through my skull. I kept my eyes shut the whole time, mostly to keep from throwing up again, which didn't work. I think I opened the door while we were still halfway in motion, and just leaned out and let it all go. Real graceful. Next thing I knew, I was being wheeled inside. Bright lights, murmured voices, a flurry of things happening way too fast. Ethan was talking to someone at the front desk. I think he said, "She's hallucinating. She can't speak straight." Something about the way the nurse looked at me must have said everything she needed to know, because they rushed me in without any of the usual paperwork dance. I caught pieces of words, meningitis, bacterial, lumbar puncture if needed, and we need to start antibiotics now. It felt like a foreign language. All I could focus on was the needle going into my arm, and the cold sting of the IV fluid. My vision kept pulsing in and out, and every time I tried to speak, my tongue wouldn't cooperate. There was this moment, it was quick but clear, where I thought, I might not come back from this. Not in the dramatic way people say, but in a quiet, detached kind of way, like my body was checking out, and I was just along for the ride. Time did this weird thing after they hooked me up to the IV. It unraveled. I couldn't tell if I was sleeping or awake. It all blended together into this heavy, numbing fog. The hospital room felt too still, like it was holding its breath. The only sounds were the occasional blip of a machine and the muffled voices out in the hallway, which may have just been in my head. I remember blinking up at the ceiling and the lights were off, or maybe dimmed, but then again, maybe my eyes just weren't working right. And then I saw him, Ryan, my ex, just standing there, at the foot of my bed. I hadn't thought about him in a long time. Not like that. And yet there he was. His face was different. Older. Tired maybe, but his eyes were the same. Cold. Focused. He didn't say my name. He didn't ask how I was. He just looked at me. Not with concern. More like disappointment? Contempt? I don't know, but it felt directed at Ethan. He said things, I don't remember the exact words, but the tone cut deep. It was like he was trying to plant doubt in my head, like I didn't deserve the life I had now. I remember this awful pressure building in my chest, like I couldn't breathe, and then he leaned in and touched my forehead. It wasn't a kind gesture, it felt possessive. That moment keeps replaying, and I keep asking myself, was it a hallucination, a fever dream, a memory twisting itself inside out? I want to believe it wasn't real. I need to, but I can still feel the weight of his presence, like he was there, like he never left the room at all. The next morning, I think it was morning, the light coming in through the blinds was soft and dull, the kind that doesn't quite wake you up, just reminds you that time is still moving. I was stuck somewhere between exhaustion and confusion, my brain still swimming in whatever cocktail of meds they had me on. The machines were still humming next to me, and I could feel the stiffness in my body from barely moving all night. A nurse came in. I hadn't seen her before. She seemed friendly enough, maybe mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back, wearing those weird patterned scrubs hospitals seemed to hand out at random. She checked my vitals, asked if I needed more water, the usual routine. And then, like she was asking about the weather, she said, "So, is your cousin Ryan coming back today?" I didn't react at first. I thought I misheard her. But then she said it again, something about him stopping by the night before. I just stared at her, and I must have looked confused, because she paused, but only for a second. Here's the thing, I don't have a cousin named Ryan, and the only Ryan I know is the one person I'd never expect or want to show up uninvited, especially in a place like this. I tried to speak, but I was too out of it to explain, too scared of sounding crazy, so I nodded, played along like it was totally normal. But inside, everything turned. Had he really been there? Was it not a dream after all? And if it was real, how the hell did he even know I was in the hospital? Nothing added up. Nothing felt safe. After the nurse left, I just laid there, still, blank, completely wrecked. My body was too tired to move, but my mind wouldn't stop circling that one question: was Ryan really here? It felt easier, almost comforting, to tell myself it was just the fever talking. A dream, a hallucination, that would explain everything. But the way the nurse had said it, so casually, like it was nothing, that's what stuck with me. I waited until I was alone, just me, the quiet whir of machines, and the ache in my skull that refused to let go. I grabbed my phone off the little table next to the bed. The screen was blurry, or maybe my eyes were. It took me a minute to find his contact. I hadn't seen it in months. His name still sat there in my messages, like it had been waiting for me. I stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen, debating if I even wanted to open that door again. But I had to, not for closure or anything noble like that, just to know if I was losing it or not. I sent something simple. I don't even remember the exact words, just that it was enough for him to respond. He said he came when he heard I was sick, claimed it was out of concern. That was it. No explanation for how he found out. No apology. No anything, really. Just a vague answer that only made things worse. I didn't ask about the things he said. The things I think I heard. I couldn't, because if he confirmed them, I'd have to believe it really happened. And if he denied it, I'm not sure that would have helped either. I keep replaying his voice in my head, trying to figure out if it was real, or just something my brain created to mess with me. I still don't know. He came back that night. I think he could tell something was off the second he walked into the room, not just the sickness, but something else under the surface. I probably looked pale and distant, like I'd been staring at the same wall for hours, which, honestly, I had. He sat by my bed, held my hand, rubbed my shoulder, said the right things, told me I'd be okay. But all I could think about was how close I'd come to saying something. The words were right there, waiting to slip out. Ryan was here. I think he threatened you. I think I heard him say he wants you gone. But I didn't say any of it. I couldn't. Not because I didn't trust Ethan. I do, more than anyone. But there was something about the whole situation that felt contaminated, like dragging it into the open would somehow give it more weight, more reality. And the truth is, I wasn't even sure what the truth was. What would I tell him, exactly, that I might have hallucinated my ex in the middle of the night, standing over me, whispering things I don't fully remember, that a nurse said he visited, but I don't know if I can believe that either. It all felt too flimsy, like a story with missing pages, so I didn't say anything, just nodded when Ethan asked if I was okay. Let him believe the worst was over. But it wasn't, not really. It still feels like I'm carrying this shadow around, and if I talk about it, it might take shape. It might become real. So I keep it buried. Because between dream and memory, I honestly can't tell the difference anymore. It was a quiet moment. Ethan had gone to grab coffee, and I was alone again in that room with nothing but the rhythmic beeping of machines and the distant hum of hospital life behind closed doors. I couldn't shake it. I kept thinking, what if it really happened? What if Ryan was actually here? Ethan, I needed something solid, something outside of my own foggy, fevered mind. So I asked one of the nurses, gently, like I was just making conversation. I said something like, "Hey, do those hallway cameras work at night?" She looked at me for a second, kind of puzzled, then said she'd ask someone in admin. A few hours passed. Enough time for me to start feeling stupid for even bringing it up. But then a man from the admin department showed up at my door. He had a clipboard and this sort of apologetic half smile, and he told me, very matter-of-factly, that the camera covering the hall outside my room had been down that night. Maintenance issue, he said. Just one of those things. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, maybe even smiled a little to play it off. But inside, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I wasn't surprised. Of course it would be down. Of course. Just one more blank space I couldn't fill. Part of me keeps saying it has to have been a dream. That the meds, the fever, the exhaustion, all of it blurred the lines too much. But every time I close my eyes, I still see him standing there, still feel that presence in the room. And if it really was all in my head, why does it still feel so real? Why can't I let it go? So I just started this new position, night shifts at St. Alden's long-term care. The place was maybe a 10-minute drive from my apartment, which felt like a win. I'd done geriatric care before, so I figured I knew the drill. But something about St. Alden's felt thicker, heavier. It wasn't the people or the staff, not even the layout. It was the Alzheimer's unit. That's where I was placed. And if you've ever spent time in a unit like that overnight, you'll know what I mean when I say the air feels slower. Most of the patients were somewhere else entirely, mentally speaking. Some were stuck decades in the past, talking to husbands who'd been dead 20 years, asking about jobs they hadn't held since the 60s. Others just floated through the day and night like they weren't even tethered to anything real anymore, and yet they responded to me. I don't know if it was because I was younger than most of the staff, or maybe I just didn't treat them like they were already gone. Some even smiled when they saw me, which meant more than it should have. The strange part was how time seemed to bend there. Like, I'd start a task at midnight and glance at the clock, thinking an hour had passed, only to see it was still 12:08. The silence in that place at night, it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that presses on your ears and makes your thoughts louder. Everything echoed more than it should have. Footsteps, doors, even whispers. I didn't think much of it at first. Honestly, I chalked it up to adjusting to a new routine. But looking back now, I think that was the beginning. I just didn't know what I'd stepped into yet. Marla wasn't like the others. Most of the patients in the Alzheimer's unit had some sort of rhythm, erratic, yes, but predictable in their own strange way. Marla didn't have that. She didn't really sleep. At least not like the others did. Her eyes were always open, just enough to make you unsure if she was awake or dreaming with her eyes open. And every time I walked past her room, I'd catch her staring into corners like she was waiting for something to crawl out. She'd mutter too, soft little fragments of things, half sentences, sometimes just names or numbers. At first, I wrote it off as typical disorientation. I mean, hallucinations aren't exactly uncommon in this ward, but there was something different about how Marla said things. She wasn't confused or panicked. Her voice had this focused edge to it, like she wasn't imagining, she was remembering. She kept talking about a man. "He won't stop watching," she said one night, though not directly to me, just to the air. It got to me more than I care to admit. I'd find myself slowing down outside her room, holding my breath without realizing it, like some part of me was bracing for what? I don't know. Just something. The weirdest part? Her roommate had specifically asked to keep the curtain between their beds closed before I even clocked in. Not requested it, insisted on it, like she didn't want to accidentally glance over in the dark. That stuck with me. because even if she didn't understand much, she knew enough to want space. And maybe that was the first sign that whatever was going on with Marla wasn't just in her head. Or maybe I was just getting too tired, too suggestible, but it felt like she wasn't alone in that room. It must have been around 2 or 3 in the morning, deep enough into the shift that everything felt unreal, like time had melted a bit. That's when it happened. One of the patients, a quiet man who'd never given us any issues, just started choking. No signs leading up to it, no gasping, no warning, just this sudden sound like he was drowning in air. I rushed in without thinking. It was all muscle memory at first. Position him, try to dislodge whatever it was, stay calm, stay focused. But nothing worked. His eyes were wide, watery, and I could feel his panic spreading into mine. I slammed the call button, and nothing. Just a dead, unresponsive piece of plastic on the wall. So I had to leave him. For those few seconds, I had to run down the hall and grab someone. And that's the part that stuck with me. Those seconds felt like hours. Every step felt heavy, like I was wading through something thick and invisible. By the time I got help and we returned, he was still struggling, but we got it under control, just barely. No one said much afterward, just nods, quiet acknowledgments. But for me, something shifted, not just in the room, in me. I didn't feel in control anymore, not even close. It's hard to explain, but it was like the floor had tilted just enough to throw off my balance, like the night had taken something from me, and I hadn't noticed until I was standing there, catching my breath. It wasn't mystical. I don't want to paint it like that, but it wasn't normal either. It felt fragile, and that's when I realized how thin the thread was between holding it together and slipping under. I ended up in the supply closet a little after 4, I think. The kind of hour where your body feels like it's moving, but your brain is just watching. I was restocking linens, one of those quiet little tasks that usually helps the shift pass. The closet was small, just enough room for a cart and shelves, and when you pull the door shut, you're sealed off from everything else. It was dead silent in there, like silence had weight to it. I was halfway through folding some sheets when I heard something. Not a loud sound, just the kind of soft shift in the air that makes your ears perk up, like when you know someone's behind you before they say anything. I paused, listened, nothing, just my own breath, too loud in the stillness. I told myself it was nothing, just tired nerves. I kept working. Then I felt it. Pressure, not subtle, not vague. A hand on my shoulder, not brushing, pressing, heavy enough that my first instinct was to flinch and spin around like I was about to see someone standing right there. I turned so fast, I nearly knocked the cart into the shelf, but there was nothing. No one. Not even the kind of static air that usually lingers after someone leaves a room, just emptiness. I stood there longer than I needed to, frozen, trying to convince myself I imagined it, that it was tension, stress, maybe even some kind of muscle twitch. But deep down, I knew better. It was too real, too physical. I can still feel the shape of it if I think about it long enough. That room stayed quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. I was about to wheel the linen cart back into the hallway. My hand was already on the door handle. I turned to leave, not really thinking about anything except how much longer until shift change. Maybe what I'd eat when I got home. Just normal stuff. Then I saw him. Through the narrow strip of glass in the door, there was someone standing there. A man, I think. Tall, wearing black, just standing. Not walking by, not checking in, not doing anything you'd expect someone in a hospital to be doing. Just still, and looking right at me. He didn't move, not even a twitch. His face was pale, but the thing that lodged itself in my brain was the smile. Not wide, not cartoonish, just knowing. Subtle, like he'd been waiting there. My body reacted before I even processed it. I screamed loud, raw, full panic. It wasn't something I decided to do, it just happened. And the moment I blinked or looked away, honestly I can't remember which, he was gone. I threw the door open, stumbled into the hall, hoping to see someone walking away, someone playing a prank, something I could explain. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no sound. The hallway was just as empty as it always was at that hour. A couple nurses came running, wide-eyed, asking what happened. I tried to explain but heard myself saying the words and realized how they sounded out loud. I don't even remember what their responses were. Reassurance, probably. The usual stuff. But I know what I saw, or at least I think I do. And it wasn't someone I recognized. It wasn't someone who should have been there. And that smile, it's burned in the back of my mind, even now. The screaming had thrown the whole unit off balance. Lights flicked on. Doors creaked open. Everyone was suddenly awake or half awake, eyes wide in that way people look when they're caught between sleep and fear. I found myself walking, almost instinctively, back toward Marla's room. I don't know why. Maybe I needed something familiar. Maybe I just needed to see her still in her bed, rambling about the usual nonsense. But she wasn't rambling. She was sitting up. Her posture was stiff, shoulders tense, and her face, it was alert. That's what caught me off guard. Not confused, not dazed. She looked like someone trying to solve something just out of reach, like a puzzle piece she'd seen before but couldn't place. She wasn't looking at me either. She kept glancing past me out into the hallway behind me. I said something. I can't even remember what. Something about what I saw. Maybe I asked her if she'd heard anything. Maybe I tried to laugh it off. I honestly don't know. But whatever I said, her entire expression changed. She went still, completely still. Her eyes welled up, and then the tears started falling. Quiet at first, then louder. Crying turned into panic. Her breathing sped up. She grabbed at her blanket like it was the only thing anchoring her. It didn't feel like shared paranoia. It didn't feel like one of those mirrored dementia moments. No, it was something else entirely. Like she understood exactly what I meant. Like she had seen him too. Maybe earlier, maybe often, maybe tonight. And that messed me up more than anything else that night. Because for a split second, I wasn't the only one carrying this. And somehow that made it worse. After that night, I knew I was done. Not in some dramatic storming out kind of way, just done. I sent a message to the charge nurse the next morning and said I'd come in for one last shift. But that was it. I didn't go into detail. Just said I wasn't in the right headspace. They said they understood. Maybe they did. Maybe they've heard things like that before. The truth is, I don't know what to make of any of it. I've had tougher weeks. I've worked longer shifts on less sleep. I've handled combative patients, medical emergencies, grief, families yelling, all of it. But this wasn't like any of those things. I keep trying to explain it away to myself. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe my brain finally snapped a little under the pressure. Maybe Marla's paranoia rubbed off on me and I just absorbed it. People do that, right? Mirror anxiety. Create images out of stress. But then I think about the hand on my shoulder, the man behind the glass, the way Marla looked at me like she knew, and it just doesn't add up. Not in a way that makes sense. It's not like I want it to be something unexplainable. I'm not looking for ghosts. I don't even like scary stories, but I can't shake it. I still get that tight feeling in my chest when I think about that night. Not fear exactly, more like unfinishedness. I've stopped trying to wrap it up neatly. There's no box this fits in. I left St. Alden's and never looked back. And whatever was there, whatever I think I saw, it's probably still there. I just hope it never decides to follow me out. You ever look back at a decision and think, yeah, that was dumb, but I probably would have done it again anyway? That's kinda where I'm at with this. I matched with this girl, Marina. She had that look, you know, the kind of confidence that doesn't feel forced. Tattoos all the way down her left arm like a sleeve of stories I'd never get to read. That violet streak in her black hair didn't look accidental either. There was something about her, or maybe I just wanted there to be something. One of her photos really stood out. She was sitting on a rooftop at night, Red Marsh Medical in the background, all jagged silhouette against the skyline like some forgotten movie set. It wasn't just a cool shot, it had weight. I remember staring at it, trying to decide if it was art or just a huge red flag I didn't want to admit was waving right in front of me. When she told me she liked sneaking into abandoned places and that we should hit Red Marsh one night, I didn't even stop to ask why, not even a pause. I just said sure. Like breaking into an old hospital on a first hangout was a totally normal idea. Maybe I thought I was being spontaneous. Maybe I thought I could impress her by not flinching. But if I'm honest, part of me knew it wasn't a great idea. There was something about the way she said it, like it wasn't her first time, and I should have wondered why she kept going back. But I didn't. I said yes. And now every time I replay that night, I still can't figure out if I was pulled into something or if I walked in with my eyes wide open. It's weird how quiet the drive was. Marina didn't talk much, and I didn't really know what to say either. The closer we got to the place, the more it felt like I was crossing some invisible line. I thought it'd be farther out, but Red Marsh Medical kind of just appeared, half swallowed by trees, tucked behind rows of half-dead industrial buildings. Like the city itself wanted to forget it existed. We turned off onto this narrow dirt trail that barely counted as a road. No signs, no lights, just brush thick enough to lose a car in. She told me where to stop like she'd done it a dozen times. Maybe she had. That part stuck with me more later. We left the car and cut through these overgrown weeds, the kind that grab your legs like they don't want to let go. She moved fast, like muscle memory. I was already trailing behind by the time we reached this sunken corner of the building. Some old maintenance hatch, half collapsed, hidden behind a mesh of rusted fencing and graffiti that had almost faded away. It didn't even feel like sneaking in. There was no lock, no warning sign, nothing. Just this gaping dark hole surrounded by weeds that looked like they were trying to pull the whole thing back into the ground. I remember thinking, there's no way this is safe, and yet I followed her through it anyway. I caught my jeans on something sharp climbing down. Didn't even look to see what. It felt like I was entering a place that didn't want me there. Not in a supernatural way or anything, just that kind of dead silence that presses on your back the second you're inside. Like the building itself was waiting. You ever walk into a place that feels like it remembers things? That's what the lower level of Red Marsh felt like. It had that kind of thick air, damp, cold in a way that sinks under your skin and just lingers. I think we were near what used to be the boiler rooms, maybe. There were old metal grates on the floor and piping that snaked along the ceiling, most of it rotted or broken in half. I didn't know what anything was, and Marina didn't seem like she cared. She was talking, not nervous rambling, more like trying to drown out the silence, talking about some art class she dropped, or a dog she almost adopted. I wasn't really following. I think I liked hearing her voice more than the quiet around us. But then I heard it. It was this low, metallic bang, like a door closing somewhere far off or something falling. It echoed through the hallway in a way that made it impossible to tell how far it actually was. Not close, not far, just somewhere. And it didn't repeat. I told myself it had to be wind. Maybe a loose panel, a rat knocking something over. Buildings this old have noises. That's normal, right? But she stopped talking. That's what did it. She went still, didn't say a word, didn't make a joke. Just stood there, flashlight lowered, like she was listening for something else. I tried to do the same, but all I could hear was my own breathing, which suddenly felt way too loud. We turned our lights off and stood there in the dark for a while, probably only a minute, but it felt like it stretched. And in that silence, I started wondering if we'd just walked into something we weren't supposed to hear. There's this moment that keeps coming back to me more than anything else from that night. We were in some hallway. I couldn't tell you which floor. We weren't really going up or down anymore. I think we were just moving to stay in motion, like stopping would somehow make us part of the place. The hallway was narrower here, tighter. Like the building had been shrinking the deeper we went. We passed this steel door tucked into the wall like it didn't want to be noticed. At first glance it looked like every other sealed-off room we'd passed. But then I saw the chain. Not old, rusted over like everything else. This one was newer. The padlock wasn't covered in grime. Someone had made sure this door stayed shut, and that's when I heard it. Just faint, a shifting sound, slow, like someone moving their foot or dragging something along the floor behind it. Not fast or panicked, just deliberate. I should have kept walking, but I stopped, leaned in, tried to make out what it was. The second I really committed to listening, it went completely quiet. Like whoever or whatever was inside realized they weren't alone anymore. I didn't say anything. Neither did Marina. We didn't even look at each other. We just started walking again, quicker than before. There was this unspoken understanding that we weren't supposed to acknowledge it. Like saying it out loud would make it real, or worse, make it come out. Even now I think about that door, about what might have been behind it. Not in a supernatural way, just real. Too real, because someone had locked it for a reason, and part of me still wonders if they were keeping something in or keeping something out. I think we were trying to find a different stairwell. The last one had this weird draft coming up from below, and neither of us wanted to stick around long enough to figure out why. Marina said something about going higher, rooftop level maybe, but it felt more like we were just trying to outrun whatever weird vibe had started following us since that damn door. We found another stairwell. Narrow, tighter than the others, with rusted railings and concrete steps that echoed under our weight. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not ours. Not light or cautious either. These were heavy, fast, and absolutely sure of themselves. I stopped moving just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But it didn't stop. Still coming. It wasn't a guard. No way. There was no flashlight beam bouncing off the walls, no voice shouting warnings or telling us to leave. Just footsteps. Close, urgent, and not even trying to hide. I looked at Marina. She didn't say a word, just turned and bolted, and I followed. I didn't even think about it. My legs just went, and my brain tried to catch up later. We flew through hallway after hallway. I couldn't tell if we were going in circles or deeper into the building. Every corner we turned looked like the last peeling paint, busted ceiling tiles, bits of old hospital signage that led nowhere. I kept thinking we'd reach a dead end, that we'd hit some collapsed wing or a blocked stairwell. My chest was on fire from how fast we were going. I couldn't tell if the footsteps had stopped or if I'd just gone numb to the sound, but it didn't feel random. It felt timed, like they knew the layout better than we did, like they were guiding us or hurting us. We stopped on this kind of in-between rooftop, not the main roof, more like a flat ledge off the side of one of the upper wings. It wasn't wide, but it felt open after all those tight stairwells and twisted corridors. I think we just needed air, even if it was stale and metallic, soaked in that rot the building couldn't shake off. I don't know how long we stood there, catching our breath. Could have been 10 seconds or a full minute. Everything blurred after that stairwell. My lungs still hurt. My legs felt like they were shaking even when I stood still, and my brain hadn't stopped racing since the footsteps. Then I saw him. Just a flicker at first. Movement on the level below, near the edge of the rooftop. At first I thought it was nothing, maybe a shadow from our light, or some loose tarp catching the breeze. But it wasn't. It was a man, standing still, wearing a dark hoodie, hood up, hands at his sides like he'd been waiting there, like he knew we'd come up. He didn't yell, didn't run, just lifted one hand, slow, deliberate, a gesture like he was calling us down. No urgency, no threat in the motion. But that was somehow worse, that quiet confidence, like he didn't need to chase us. I didn't want to look too long, but I couldn't stop either. I was trying to make sense of what I was seeing, and failing. His body language didn't match the setting, didn't match anything that made sense. Then he turned and walked away, just slipped behind the wall, gone, and I swear something in my gut twisted the moment he vanished. Marina didn't even hesitate. She was already moving again, and I didn't ask. I just ran. We finally made it back to the basement. Everything was dimmer than I remembered, like the shadows had thickened since we first came through. The hatch we entered from was still there, wide open like some gaping mouth we were lucky to escape from. Marina went up first, fast, quiet, no looking back. I hesitated. I don't know why, but being the last one out suddenly felt dangerous. Like that made me vulnerable. Like the second I put one foot up, someone would be waiting just below, watching, or worse, ready to reach out and grab me before I made it. I couldn't shake the image of a hand closing around my ankle, pulling me back down, but nothing happened. Not really. Still, my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I scrambled out after her, not even trying to be careful. We didn't say anything, just took off across the lot, sneakers skidding on loose gravel. When we hit the car, We yanked the doors open and slammed them shut, locked them instantly, and then we just sat there, breathing, staring ahead, not talking. The car felt like the safest place on earth in that moment, which is insane when you think about it. 4 doors and some glass suddenly felt like security after whatever the hell that was. Eventually, we drove to a fast food place a few blocks away, one of those 24-hour spots, mostly empty except for the staff and some guy passed out in a booth. We parked and just sat, sipped soda, shared fries, talked, but not about the night, just surface stuff, dumb stuff, and that was it. We never really unpacked what happened. I still haven't. Every time I try, it slips away, like maybe it never wanted to be remembered clearly.